Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks so much for tuning in to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast, guys. We are always fired up. Today, I think I'm the most fired up I've ever been. I got a young man here that's 11 months into a self-improvement weight loss journey. He's lost more weight than all three of my kids combined, 110 pounds down. I love this guy. He's my favorite follow on Twitter. Dave, I'm just going to ask you right off the bat. Tell me how it feels to look in the mirror every day, man, and see not only a new physical body as the weight keeps going off, but a new mind, a new spirit, a new you, man.
It feels really good. It feels like a weight has been lifted off of my shoulders because one, it has physically, and two, it has from a mental health standpoint and a spiritual standpoint at the same time. So it feels like a rebirth almost over the last 11 or 12 months. I thought it was just going to be a weight loss journey because I needed to, make sure my blood glucose was in the appropriate range. And it has turned into so much more than that. Some of it's hard to articulate, some of it's hard to show in a picture, but it has been truly a reimagining of my future and sort of a rebirth of myself. I feel far more alive than I did 12 months ago.
And I love that. Well, let me ask you, was there a moment, Dave, where sort of like you were like, hey, enough is enough, or a bad diagnosis, or kind of lead me up to how did you kind of get to that point? What were some things happening? And then when was that moment where you're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
Let's go all in,
So it was about exactly a year ago. I took one of the first flights I had taken since the pandemic, and I had to ask for a seatbelt extender, which was pretty much the most embarrassing moment of my life. And when I got back from that trip, I decided I had just moved into this house. I would break out the scale. It was still in a box, and I would see what was going on. I had been a big guy sort of pre-COVID, but then the year or two with COVID and everything was remote and there wasn't much travel going on. And clearly there had been some drastic changes. I had never needed that seatbelt extender before. So I jumped on the scale that evening and I got an error message. I didn't think that much of it. It had been packed in a box. Things get broken when you move. I'll just order another one on Amazon. And then I woke up the next morning and I wondered if that scale had a maximum weight. And so I checked the back of it and the max weight was 400 pounds, but it was Amazon Prime. So the new scale was already here. It was the same model scale. So I jumped on that second scale and got an error message again. And that's when it sort of hit home, combining these two error messages with that seatbelt extender from the week prior that neither of the scales were broken. I was over 400 pounds and the scale couldn't tell me how much I weighed. And so combine those two moments happening, within a week of each other. And that was sort of my wake-up call. There were some other things that I had gotten, good at lying to myself about, but those two things, I couldn't lie about that error message on the scale or the seatbelt.
It's funny how sometimes in life, those hard things that you kind of have to go through. Mine was a kick in the gut where, my daughter wanted to play with me all day and I kept telling her daddy's lazy, daddy's tired, and then it was like a punch in the gut when I realized like, I'm not going to get a lot of these days, but I need to change some things. I need to become a higher energy dad and more present. And sounds like for you, you had those moments too, man. I want to read a tweet that you just put out.
Sure.
Not that long ago, you said, it's not just about weight loss. It's about doing something hard. No surgery, no pills, no fad diets, no crazy workouts. So I think most people are going to say, okay, Dave, you lost 110 pounds. You got to be starving yourself. You got to be doing some extreme 10-hour-a-day stuff, right? Can you kind of walk people through what it's looked like over the last year for you?
Sure. So like any guy who gets, above 400 pounds, right? I'm not exactly sure where I started. I had tried dieting and exercise before. And I had always failed and I had always gained back more weight than I had before. And so I knew that I needed to do something radically different than I had before because I didn't think my mental health could take another failure like that. And at that point in time, I sort of knew what wasn't working. Not that those things I tried before, I was losing weight, but I just wasn't doing it long term and I was falling off the bandwagon and I was miserable. And then I would gain all the way back and everything would be worse. So this time around, instead of doing tons and tons of cardio and eating tons of salads and tracking every calorie and making sure I'm in a massive calorie deficit, I took a little bit of a different approach. And so I eat a generally low carb diet, lots of meat, lots of vegetables, but I don't track anything. And I get up early, at 4 a.m., 5 days a week to work out. but nothing like the 1 or 2 or 3 hours of cardio I would try to be doing prior. My workouts now are 30 to 45 minutes. And, a lot of that now is strength training with a little bit of cardio thrown in. And that has turned into something that, at least for the first 11, almost 12 months now, is more sustainable, both in terms of weight loss, but also in terms of my mental health. And exercising has gone from something that used to be a pain and I just didn't do, to now something that I look forward to and is often the best time of my day. People ask me what my routine is or whatnot, or what exercises they should do. And, I'm not an expert. I still have, like 100 pounds of weight loss to go, right? So I'm a little uncomfortable giving that type of advice. But what I will say is the best type of exercise for me has been the exercise that I want to come back and do again tomorrow, that I want to do over and over again. Walking into the gym at 300 or 400 pounds, doing anything for 30 or 40 minutes, I'm going to get my heart rate up, my blood pumping, I'm going to be sweating, I'm going to burn some calories. So I take it sort of slow and steady, and I find what I like, and then I do it a couple times a week and take the weekends off and then repeat.
That is so. I love I got to clip that, and we need to send that to everybody who has thought like, well, these things aren't sustainable. And I love how you mentioned the salads and the things like that, because look, okay, I'm 40, so is my wife. We're about to be 40. My wife is vegetarian for 17 years and does all cardio. Impressive. I lift weights, don't like cardio at all, and eat a lot of meat. But we found what is sustainable and works for us. And I always tell people, dude, if you love to dance, make dancing a part of your routine. Like, exactly, whatever you're going to keep coming back to do consistently is the thing you need to keep doing. Just keep your body in motion and find healthy foods that you like and are not terrible for you, right? It's not crazy stuff, man. But I love how you said, I enjoy going to it, man. And you mentioned the 4 a.m. wake ups. I got to read this tweet, man. You said 4 a.m. wake ups. I get asked if I'm tired waking up at 4 a.m. every day. Not as tired as I was walking up a flight of steps at 400 plus pounds, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Choose your hard. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit, and what you mean by that, and what sort of, losing 110 pounds is meant to even your spirit and mentally, man?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do get asked all the time, pretty much every day, when I post that 4 a.m. alarm clock picture, about that I don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. or like, how do I wake up at 4 a.m. or is it hard? And the answer is like, of course it's hard. Like, nobody really wants to be up at 4 a.m. My bed is far more comfortable than going downstairs, getting to the gym. And so it is difficult. But what was much harder back at over 400 pounds was not just walking up a flight of stairs and getting winded and, having your, sweating through the back of your shirt, walking up to your home office, which happened, but also everything else in life that you would be worried about. Tying my shoes was difficult. When I sat on a chair, I was worried if it was going to collapse under me. Every time I flew or got in any form of public transportation, will the seat fit? Will the seat belt fit? Right? Even some cars were difficult to, get the seat belt fastened. And so that is so tiresome, not just to me physically, but also spiritually. It makes you so weary. That's all, like, it takes up so much of your mental bandwidth every day at that size. And I can only imagine, for folks who are even larger, that yes, what I'm doing right now is hard, especially the 4 a.m. wake up part, but it's nothing compared to what it was a year ago. And I can only imagine it will get even easier, a year from now.
Yeah, I think that's, man, if you just take 110-pound weight and carry it around all day, man, that's a lot harder of a day, right? And
absolutely.
I always joke with you a little bit now on the Twitter platform, man, where you say, well, I still have 100 to go. And I'm like, no, you don't, brother. I can see it in your eyes and your mind. You've already lost the weight. Time will just simply catch up, man.
Just catch up.
Yeah, you are locked in like beyond measure, man. But I love that kind of choose your hard. And then, I do want to touch upon this and get your thoughts on it, because I've seen some of your posts and things, but I have friends and family that are well overweight too, right? And there's this big acceptance now of like, man, body positivity, it's all great. Let's all share and cheer everybody on. And I always say, man, like, I will always meet people where they're at. And like, dude, I don't care if you're 700 pounds. I'll pat you on the back. I'll cheer for you. I'll love you the same. But I think you kind of owe it to yourself if we look at every form of premature death and quality of life, right? So where's your stance on that as a guy who was over 400, is going to be 200 here in a year or so, right? Like, where do you kind of stand on that, Dave?
Yeah, I like to say that I don't tell people how to live their lives. It's just not, I'm having enough trouble, managing my own weight, right? But having said that, I can tell you when I was over 400 pounds, there was nothing particularly positive going on in my life with my body physically, and then the repercussions that had on me mentally, the repercussions that had on my relationships with my family, with my friends. And I was concerned the repercussions it would have on my job. It had been a few years of COVID, so a lot of things, I'm an accountant, so I had been remote, but if I ever had to go back into an office, right, I was much bigger than I'd ever been before. And so it's not that I don't want to be positive, because I'm a very positive person and I am pretty positive about my body. But having said that, taking the future into my own hands and working on my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health, my financial health, that sort of is my body positivity. I try to draw a distinction between, finding beauty in the way God created people differently, which we should do, and glorifying morbid obesity, which we shouldn't do. And sometimes I feel like that body positivity movement, mixes those a little bit more than it should, let's say.
Yeah, I think I align exactly where you are. And I never want to tell people where, in fact, on a lot of both of our tweets, I think we say, hey, this is what works for me, but find what works for you. And what may work for me may totally not work for you. And so, I think all different shapes, sizes, forms. That's great. Life would be so dull if we all just kind of looked the same and acted the same. That's what makes life awesome. But I do think, man, it's really cool how you kind of said, I'm going to take control and take life into my hands. And can I ask, Dave, when you first started, was it ever like, what's the point on some of those few days? I mean, man, I'm down, you probably worked really hard for a month, right? And then maybe you're down 10 pounds and you're like, I still have, like, what was your kind of thought process as that stuff went along, man?
That first month was incredibly difficult, because when I got on the scale and got that error message, that was either June 1st or 2nd of last year. And then I didn't get a weight on the scale until the 29th. So it was 4 weeks of continually seeing that error message, of getting up at 4 a.m., of trying to overhaul my diet, of working harder than I've basically worked on anything else, and then getting on the scale every few days and still seeing that error message for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, for 4 weeks. And then I remember when I had that 399.9, because that was the first weight I saw, I threw myself like a huge party. I told everyone it was great. And you could see some people were a little bit confused. But for me, getting that high of a weight, if I was finally sort of like on the scale, right, I could get an actual number. So really, like that 110 pounds I track, from the 399.9 on June 29th of last year, because that's the first number I got. But the 4 weeks prior to that were incredibly difficult. One, because it was the first 4 weeks. And the other thing was because every day I would reconsider, should I try a different strategy? Is it even worth it? Like I'm still getting an error message, right? Like I was hoping I was just a few pounds over 400, but what if I really had been 500, right? And I just never got a number on the scale. So that type of stuff would keep me up a lot during that first month, and I couldn't afford to be up, right? Because I was going to the gym at 4 a.m.
Yeah. Some people always ask me, like, how are you a morning person too? I get up at 5 and I'm like, well, I go to bed early, right? And there's something about just making yourself get up. I'm sorry, but you're tired earlier. You can't stay up till midnight if you're getting up that early. But I love how you people battled. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, people ask me all the time how early I go to bed, and the answer is always as early as I can. I 10 p.m. is sort of like my cutoff. If I go to bed after that, I can't do the 4 a.m. thing. But if I could do 9, that would be great too. I usually can't pull it off, right? I say there are 2 things I'm still struggling with: nighttime snacking and my sleep schedule. And they sort of go together, because if I could get myself in bed a little bit earlier, I'd probably cut down the nighttime snacking because I'd be asleep. But like as much sleep as I can get, very important. And like people ask, like as early as I can get into bed, that's the answer on weeknights.
I love that. The nighttime snacking is something that just never gets easier, man.
Yeah.
One thing my wife and I did for a while is we put a sticky note on our pantry that just said pause. And so when we walk up to it, it would just, because a lot of times you're just doing it mindlessly. So it just reminds you to be a little mindful. Do I really want this? Sometimes I do. And I'll be honest, it's worth it. And then other times I'm like, no, I really don't. I'm just really tired. I should just go up to bed.
That's a good idea. Maybe I should try that.
Something kind of worked. Well, man, I want to pivot to social media and how I feel like you've just taken this by storm. I mean, brother, I don't say this lightly. I follow 700 people on Twitter. I love Twitter. I love the community. You are my favorite follow, bro. Everything you
appreciate
put
that.
is so positive. You're just the nicest guy. Include everybody. Let's all win. It's like a very team environment. You had Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm going to read this pinned tweet, man.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger said to you, "Your reps look fantastic and I'm proud of you." Like,
Yeah, that was pretty mind blowing.
yeah, I know that, you had mentioned too when you started, hey, maybe like some of the gym bros wouldn't support me because I look a certain way, but has that been your experience? Or talk about this social media? I mean, brother, you're coming up on, you'll have 100,000 people following you here in a couple months. It's awesome to see.
It's been mind blowing. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to do radically different this time, as opposed to all the other times I had tried and failed to lose weight, was I wanted to do my accountability in public. So I actually started initially posting pictures on Instagram, and I wanted to post gym selfies and weigh-in pictures under my own name, because what had happened in the past is I had gotten very good at lying to myself, and I had gotten very good bottling it all up. And then you combine that with a couple of years of remote work and not traveling a lot, and it became pretty easy to tell myself that everything was okay when everything wasn't okay. And so I started doing that, and then I started doing Twitter just so I could have two different things going at once. And then the Twitter thing took off, and it's still incredibly humbling and it's incredibly amazing that people want to follow me. And people tell me that I motivate and inspire them, but at this point, it's a circle. It's self-fulfilling almost, because they motivate and inspire me. And then you wake up one morning, right, and Arnold Schwarzenegger has retweeted me, and not just retweeted, but wrote a whole thread of like. And that was my first time ever doing a bench press. Like, I'm sure the reps weren't good. You know what I mean? Just incredibly positive. And like, he's followed up several times. And it's just been a mind-blowing ride. And people ask me, what are you doing on social media? What are your goals? And like, I don't really know, right? It was mostly just an accountability thing for myself. I didn't have an Instagram account prior to last year. There's no personal version of that account out there. That's me. I'm not really a social media guy until this happened. And then Twitter, which has, in my opinion, a fairly toxic reputation for its political nature and culture war nature, especially over the last couple of years, turns out to be the one that takes off, and the one that ends up being incredibly positive and incredibly inclusive, and by far my favorite social media platform at this point in time. And you mentioned the gym bros. The most intimidating part of the whole thing, the whole journey, was walking into the gym at over 400 pounds alone, having never done anything except cardio before. And so basically knowing how to like walk on a treadmill, and that was it. And getting that intimidation, or I think they call it gym intimidation. I don't know how they say it, but like in hindsight, the gym bros have been my biggest cheerleaders, have been some of my biggest supporters, have been incredibly positive, incredibly inclusive. They want me to be there. They want me to succeed, both in person and online. And they want to help. They want to push you, and they want to make sure that you're going to be back in a day or two, right? To see if we can get a little bit more. And I wish I could go back and convince 400 plus pound Dave, or maybe several years earlier, right? So I never got to that point, that was going to be the case, because it's been completely mind blowing and completely sort of antithetical to what I thought was going to happen right when I first walked into the gym. It's an amazing community, and I think I've come to understand that when you walk in to the gym, you leave all your identities at the door, and everyone in there is focused on the same type of goal and doing the same type of things. And that instantly creates a bond, and it instantly creates a bond that's like driven towards results and personal best and doing better than you did yesterday. And that is, let's just say, that's not the expectation I had of gyms prior to this. And the same goes for Twitter on the social media front.
I love how you can kind of combine both of those, and I can relate to that so much. I was kind of on the other spectrum. I weighed like 149 pounds, and then
Wow.
A buddy asked me, "Do you want to go to the gym?" And I was like, "Well, I've only ever ran. I don't really know how to lift weights." And this guy was built like a Greek statue. And I remember I couldn't sleep the night before, Dave, when he invited me. His name's Colby. Yeah. And this guy, I'll be honest, we did legs the first day. I couldn't squat the bar with proper form, and he's loading on 445s, right?
Yeah.
But I never felt judged. I never felt intimidated. They always were there to cheer me on. This whole group of guys is kind of the same way. And it really resonated with me that, well, once people get to that certain kind of mindset where they want to get better, they just kind of want to invite other people along. And I do think that's a big misconception of the gym. And if people go 99 times out of 100, I hear that same story.
Agreed.
I was intimidated, but once I showed up, everybody was pretty loving and encouraging. And I think that's a good takeaway for everybody. The social media thing, I feel like our corner of Twitter is the greatest place on earth because everybody does cheer for everybody and it's not toxic. There are many parts of Twitter that's very toxic, but I feel like specifically our corner is just amazing. And you're one of the leaders in that corner now, man. Like you have a massive
I appreciate
voice.
that. Yeah.
Oh, you impact, like, dude, there's days where I'm not joking. My alarm goes off. I do my stuff and my mind will say, like everybody else's, I should skip today. Dude, I'll pull up my Twitter feed. I'll see you. You got there at 4 a.m. I'll see my buddy Harry's getting, and I'm like, all right, these guys are going. I got to go too, man. We all kind of feed off each other, and I think that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, that's very true. It's been the gym in real life and Twitter online have been sort of the two most unexpectedly positive outcomes of the last year. Just completely mind-blowing. And even because like my fiance doesn't have Twitter, right? My parents don't. No one else really knows Twitter. Twitter's that sort of like odd social media network. And whenever I mention it or say it, they're like, really? Like no one thinks Twitter is like the fitness one, right? Because that's like the, like the gym girls are on Instagram, right? Like, but like here I am, like Planet Fitness at 4 a.m. Like everyone else is talking about politics, and I'm doing like, it's just it's been mind blowing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's like 90% of people are arguing over what Biden said, or
exactly.
We're all just cheering each other on to go to the gym. It's pretty it's awesome.
Exactly.
Wait until you're out, man. And like my in-laws were here a few months ago, and we were just walking with the kids on the Vegas Strip, and a couple people came up to me and were like, "Dude, you're like the Tyler off Twitter, this and that."
That's
like,
crazy.
Take a photo, and I'm like, "Yeah."
That's crazy.
Like, what is this Twitter thing?
Yeah,
it's kind of wild, man. But
absolutely amazing. Yeah.
You mentioned fiance, man. Let's get into that. And one of my favorite creators on the platform is Dan Go. I love this guy. And he had this quote that said, "Fitness is like a gateway drug to self-improvement."
Yes.
I've seen some other stuff for you, man, where, dude, your finances, you've like crushed through a bunch of debt this last year.
Yes. Yeah.
It feels like your whole life is changing, and we'll have a couple big announcements here later, but walk us through that, man, how kind of you feel like that is the gateway drug, and some of the financial decisions, and your whole life just seems to like just straight up, man.
Yeah. One of the things, again, that had not worked for me in the past was solely focusing on like caloric intake versus caloric outtake. And to expand that out and to back up, I realized that, to get over 400 pounds, I'm not just like eating a little bit too much here and there. I'm eating thousands of extra calories per day for years. So there's got to be some mental health things that I need to address. Even as a man, I would rather not address them. And there might be, some workaholicness going on, or maybe some pressure from debt that's, giving me anxiety. It's hurting my sleep schedule. And so I thought to myself when I initially started, it's going to make it harder, but I think I need to work on several different types of health at the same time. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be successful. And I've come now to realize nearly a year later that I was actually wrong. Doing them all at once, I think, is easier, not harder, because you apply a lot of the same principles to all of the things, right? We live in this like instant gratification, like constant dopamine hit world. And here I am posting like 1.5 pounds of weight loss every week. And like, you can't tell a difference week to week, right? And like I have hundreds of pounds to lose. And that's like the same thing with debt, right? Chipping away at it little by little, right? The same way with like mental health. It's not like I flipped overnight. It's not like I'm done, on that journey, right? The same way with, reconnecting with my faith, building a relationship with God, that type of stuff. Like it is that, again, like that's why I'm sort of stunned, especially on Twitter, which is like the one where you have to constantly post, right? That's the one that's working for me, because my whole thing is like, no, like if I'm going to lose over 200 pounds, so like it's a 2-year journey, maybe a 3-year journey, right? And like like that's what it is. Like I'm not gonna try to rush it. Same with getting through the debt, right? It took me 2 years. Same with working on the mental health and whatnot. So yeah, like you said, like at the moment. Or what it's sort of built into is applying a similar principle that I use with exercise and weight loss across a number of things. And once you see some success, you want to see more success, and you look at the different places in your life like, where can I apply this? Like, that's why, but one of the reasons I started cooking, right? Or like when my dad comes, he does all these home improvement projects. Like now I'm trying to figure out like, how do I make a deck, right? I would never have like attempted that before, but like, it's one of those things where like, it's another like skill I can learn. It's another thing I can add. It's another thing I can work on. And that, it's hard to articulate. You can see because I'm struggling and it's hard to show in like a picture, but it's one of the most important aspects of the last year. You know, I can't show a scale picture or anything, but it's an incredible change to how I was just 12 months ago.
I think that's beautiful the way you said it, though. I think you articulated it perfect, where it's not
Thank
like man, all of a sudden we just go to the gym and the ninth time we just
Yeah,
lose 20
exactly.
pounds, right? It's like
Yeah.
you just have to chip away, chip away, chip away. One of my favorite
Yeah.
quotes is, I look over at the stonecutter, and on his 1,000th blow, the thing falls apart. And I know it's not the 1,000th blow that made that fall apart. It's the 999 before, right? And I always take that principle with everything. Today was day number 1,806 in a row that I've journaled gratitude when I wake up.
Wow.
And if you would have known me 6-7 years ago, I was a very negative person, really negative, right? But by focusing just a little bit here and there every day, you couldn't. A week in, there's probably no change, right? A month in, a little, a few months in, but it's that kind of approach. But I do agree with you. We live in a society that just wants like where's the magic pill, right? And so
exactly. Yes.
You can switch your mindset around to that. That's a huge thing, man.
Agreed. 100%. Yeah.
I love that, man. Well, two big things. We got to announce these, man. Number one, brother, I wish I could hug you right now, but congrats on the recent engagement. That's pretty exciting.
Thank you very much.
Man.
Thank you. Yes.
Give us an engagement. Give us a love story. This will be the love segment of our podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I know a lot of people, have opinions about dating apps, but this is a success story so far.
I like it.
We met on Hinge. I proposed on our 1-year anniversary, so that was like a week ago. So we've been dating for a year, just over a year, met on Hinge, and that was right around the time that I started this journey. So she has been there for me the entire journey, and she has been, participating in parts of that journey, although not the 4 a.m. wake ups. Actually, we have an engagement party this coming Friday. I think I've made this. Which is like 2 days from now, anyways. And I made this pretty clear. But one of my goals in doing this, taking this journey and needing to take it now, was I had just turned 30 last year, a few months before this all happened, and I saw a lot of things in my future that I wanted, like becoming a husband, becoming a father, being able to be a healthy father, a good role model, being around for my future kids, sort of slipping away at 400 pounds and gaining while my mental health was declining. And so some of those things, like becoming a father and a husband and a good role model, are a lot closer now, not only because of 110 pounds of weight loss and mental health improvement, but because of the engagement as well. So actually, we waited to move in until we got engaged. She's a Southern girl, so a little bit more traditional. And so we're doing that this weekend, and I won't be going to the gym Saturday and Sunday, but I'll be getting that workout in elsewhere.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I'm so happy for you, man. It's so cool to see, just where you were a year ago, and then where you are now in all facets of life. And it's like your smile, brother. I think that's why so many people are just drawn to you. You just have an infectious, like, hey man, I can do it, you can do it, we can all do it. Let's go.
That's right.
I want to get down and do some push-ups right now, Dave. I'm not gonna lie.
That's exactly right. I appreciate that.
The second big announcement. Me and you are announcing this together on Twitter.
That's exactly right. Yes.
We're running. You're going to be the president of the United States in 2028. I want to be your VP, man. We announced this on the picture you created for us here.
I'm in. Let's go. Let's
go.
Man,
that's been a lot of fun, kind of joking around.
Absolutely. It definitely has. Yes.
I've enjoyed that a lot.
Again, one of those aspects of Twitter that, like, I never expected that to be like the politics, but it's so much better than what else is going on the platform in terms of politics. But we live in such a divided country, not just politics, not just culture war, but even things like exercise, even things like diet, even things like mental health advice. It is incredible how much paralysis by analysis and how much completely contradictory advice you'll get when you're trying to start basically anything, but in my case, a weight loss and a health journey that I try to be something different online. And I guess on Twitter it's been successful, but that was sort of one of my goals when I started, was this was just going to be a personal accountability thing. And now that people are following me, it's going to be a personal accountability thing, because I still need y'all to keep me accountable, but also I'm just not going to engage in everything else on Twitter. I don't exactly know a better way to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have some pretty healthy boundaries up. And as you grow,
I see that. Yes.
you have to mute people, you have to block. Some people want to bring their negativity in, but the good thing is, like, accounts like us, I think we just attract way more positive people. And 99% of the stuff I see on Twitter is super positive, man. And even like when we joke around saying we're going to run for president and things like this, like, dude, I probably had 100 people comment, I'd vote for you guys. We need comments. We need
exactly. That's exactly right. Yes, it was all positive there too. I mean, that would be the platform, right?
That's right. Well, you know what, man? In what year are we in? 2020. In 4 years, if we really do this, we'd probably have over 1 million people together. So we can start to get some reach, man.
That's a pretty good jump on one of those spaces, like what's his name did with Elon. There you go.
That's right. I tried to tag Elon a couple of times and ask him if he'd let us on one of those. I think that would grow our following pretty well.
I agree. Yes, I agree. We can ask Zuby, right? He's talking with him.
That's right, man. Yeah, that's definitely right, man. That's where I would go first if we're going to get serious about that stuff. But
absolutely.
I do agree we're really divided on that. Do you have any kind of like, because you're a guy that just like, I love how your posts are like, let's all win. Hey, let's all do this together. Have you kind of always been like that, Dave? Or is that something that like you've kind of developed more recent?
I would say I was like that for most of my life. And then for the last few years, I haven't been like that, right? As my weight got higher, right? As, the COVID experience was isolating for a lot of us. I think there was a real period of, again, I'll say depression, because I do think that's what it was. I wasn't diagnosed with anything, so I don't want to step into that arena. But like, there was a period where I was not like that. But for most of my life, I'm generally like the most positive person in the room. Like, I'm very introverted in person, but very positive. I'm a huge optimist, right? Like, I see so much potential and so many opportunities and so much good happening just in the future and in the world. It kind of stuns me, the like level of, I guess they're called doomers on Twitter, who are just like, every time I see that, luckily isn't that much anymore because I muted a lot of them, but it's just like, I don't see life like that, right? Like in my opinion, it's one of the best times to be alive, and there's so much out there, and you just like have to go and take it, right? And that is, that's real. That's me in real life and me online. So I'm a little more extroverted online, I will say, but definitely positive and an optimist in the real world as well.
I love that, man. I felt like I really got to become myself through the social media journey too. Like, I feel like I used to maybe kind of hide a little bit parts of myself, and that's helped me even be more fully authentic to myself. When you feel like people are with you, kind of sharing that journey. But I'm also very bullish on humanity. I think, man, if we're like, even just the fact that me and you can connect and talk like that, like there was a 0% chance that you and I lived 40 years ago, we would ever get a chance to connect and talk. How neat is that now we can have a conversation? There will be people from different countries that will watch this and be inspired. Like, that's to me just such a neat thing and such a cool thing. There's so much opportunity now, like you said, like never before, right?
Yeah, just the casual things that we take completely for granted, like based on just either communication or how easy transportation is, or, like, I know there's a lot of people dunking on various types of modern medicine. I agree, it's not perfect, but at the same time, there's quite a few miracles going on out there too that I certainly can't understand, right? And, it's just like, again, like every aspect of life is filled with things that I don't understand, but are crazy awesome. And I'm going to go out and take, full advantage of that. And that's another aspect of the journey, right? Making sure that my body, my mind, my finances, right, my spiritual connection are in a place where I can take advantage of those, for a good long time.
I love that so much, man. I flew back to my hometown recently, which is in Illinois. And I mentioned to my wife, I said, man, if this was like 200 years ago, we'd have to be worried about like dysentery or getting yellow fever.
Exactly.
This journey would take 6 months, maybe, if we made it. Now in 3 hours, we're like there. Like, do you know how amazing, like what a miracle and a gift that is? It's
crazy.
It kind of blows your mind if you think about it, man. Well, dude, I love seeing you win, man. I'd love it if we could kind of start to wrap up with one piece of advice. I'd love for somebody that's watching this today that says, you know what, Dave, I'm stuck, man. I feel mentally like I've started and stopped many times. I've gotten to this point. I just feel stuck. Nothing seems to work. What would you, if you could talk right now one-on-one to a man or woman like that, what would be the, first and best piece of advice you could give them?
I think what I would tell them is trial and error is your friend, because you will find online experts, highly qualified people who will recommend polar opposites. You should eat only meat. You should never eat meat. You should do only cardio. You should never do cardio. Every subject, it's not, again, we move beyond politics and the culture war. It's into everything at this point. And these people have great physiques. They have medical doctors backing them up. They have all sorts of studies that I can't understand, but apparently they back up their claims, right? And they're telling me the exact opposite thing. So the most important thing for me on this journey has been that I found my own path through trial and error. And I didn't try to replicate exactly what someone else was doing. And when I started out this journey, whether it was exercise, whether it was diet, whether it was debt, I didn't know what to do. I'm not an expert. I'm an accountant. I don't have a nutrition body. I didn't play sports as a kid. I had no idea what I'm supposed to do, but I knew what wasn't working because I was over 400 pounds and I was struggling to tie my shoes. So clearly what I was eating then wasn't working, and having a sedentary lifestyle wasn't working. And, getting a little removed from my faith wasn't working out for me. And that credit card bill every month really wasn't working for me. So I knew all these things that weren't working. And I started by eliminating what I knew wasn't working. And then I just did trial and error. And eventually, I made my way to where we are here, and I'm still tweaking and I'm still going. And if I could add a second thing to that person, it would just be that there's a saying on Twitter, but I'm sure it applies to the internet in general, that Twitter is not real life. So like those overnight transformation pictures, or those unrealistic, diets that people are definitely following, right? Wink, wink. That's not how real life is going to go. It's going to take time, especially if you have 100, 200, 300 pounds of weight loss to go. So I would get started with trial and error and understand that you're on a multi-year journey, and then it's a lifetime of lifestyle changes after that, right? Even if I say, my goal is to lose 200 pounds in 2 years, which is what it is. But even after that, I don't get to stop and just go back to how I was, right? It's, like the next day I still have to wake up and go to the gym, right? So it's a lifestyle change, and finding your own path is really important, because lots of people gave me advice that worked for them, and they were well-intentioned, and it was obviously working for them in the past, and none of it worked for me. And that was incredibly demoralizing and incredibly frustrating, right? And I don't know if what I'm doing is going to work for you, but trying things, trial and error, and understanding that you can move on to something else. Like if low carb doesn't work for you, then you try something else, right? The key though is to keep trying until you hit upon your own path, and then walk it.
Man, I love that, man. And keep showing up consistently with that long-term vision. That is the key, man. And I absolutely love that. The lifestyle changes. I so appreciate you coming on, man. Again, it's just been floods my heart. I was telling my wife even a couple of days, I'm so just looking forward to connect with you and getting to see you in person, because you are literally my favorite person I get to follow on Twitter now. I love seeing you win, encouraging everybody else along, man. Tell us the future plans, man. I know you're engaged. 5 years from now, me and you are going to be president and vice president. But
exactly.
What's kind of some of the future plans or things you're working on now, man?
Sure. Well, one of the things is highly relevant to your Twitter. That's the most value I get out of your Twitter, and the most entertainment and the most passion I see in your life is fatherhood. Seems to be a big part of your life, and one of my purposes, I think, I guess is sounds a little odd, but it's things that seems to be a calling to me, and I'd like to be a father, well within 5 years. So that's definitely the plan on the after getting married front. And then also I do have a few rental properties. I'd like to keep adding to those. And my goal is to get to my weight loss goal next year. And then after that, focus more on building muscle and sort of refining what I'm doing there. And who knows, right? Again, I'm introverted and I'm not really a social media guy, but if it keeps going, I'll keep going, right? As long as people are here.
I love that. I don't see it stopping anytime soon, brother. You are a massive inspiration. You're just a massive blessing. I feel like every room you go into, you probably leave that room a lot better. And I think if more people were just like that, I imagine a world, man, of a bunch of Daves just happy walking around, encouraging people, being their best self. So I appreciate everything you stand for, brother.
I appreciate that.
Man, any last word to the people, man, before we jet off here?
I would just reinforce to, speaking to men mostly, just because I am one, how positive physical exercise has been and going to the gym has been in my life. I know there's a lot of people out there who do diet without the exercise, and 90% of my weight loss has been related to my diet, but 90% of my mental health improvement has been related to getting that physical exercise in, getting that boost of confidence, that boost of positivity. And just to start where you are and to walk into your local gym, and it's okay if you don't know how to do anything. And the community there will be far more positive and supportive than at least I thought beforehand. And I know as me, for a guy, again, I never played sports as a kid. I never went to the gym as a kid. I wish I had known this 10 or 15 years earlier, because it has, doing something hard every day physically, I don't know the biology or the psychology behind it, but it has a really positive impact on me every single day. And I would highly recommend it, specifically for the guys out there, if you're in any type of similar situation to where I was before. Even if the rest of my day is a train wreck, a hard workout in the morning sets up the tone positively. And it can't help with my accounting or my relationship or whatever, but at the same time, it can, and it does every day. And I can't explain it, but I can recommend it very highly.
I always say that too. I can't explain how doing some hard things like translates to other areas of your life, but it really does. When you put yourself kind of through the grinder, and then a boss yells at you, you're like, okay, I can just pivot and keep going through that. It doesn't wreck you like it kind of used to, because you're used to putting yourself through the fire, right? So I love that, man. Well, dude, I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to link everything Dave does below. Unfortunately, we can't get this guy to sell anything yet, so we're just going to ask that you give him a follow on Twitter. It's at Dave. I want to make this right. And is it Dana? Danna. Sorry, Dana.
Yep.
Yeah, so
all good.
Yeah, and he's on Instagram and Facebook as well. His relatives don't believe that he has all this Twitter, so give him a follow on all 3 platforms.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll link everything he does below, guys. He is the best follow on Twitter. I'm telling you, give him a follow on all platforms. I just want to thank you again, man, bottom of my heart, for coming on today and just sharing some wisdom and some positivity and some tips with everybody. I feel like you make everybody better that you're around, man. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. My pleasure being here.
All right, guys, I never know what episode this is. We're probably around 87, 88, 89, somewhere in there. But thank you guys for tuning in to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast. Let's go be kind to yourself. Go be kind to others. Let's bless up. Let's go change the world with kindness, baby. Have the best day of your life.